When most people hear of polygonal stonework, they tend to associate it with a lost civilization that disappeared with little trace a long time ago. In this video, I want to show you that our civilization, we ourselves remembered and knew how to use this technique not in the faraway past, but just a couple of short 100 years ago. The official history of this fort is that it was supposedly built some 130 years ago by the Austro-Hungarian Empire because the local people started rioting and the empire created this as a stronghold of its authority at that time. Even in the official history of the place, we see a hint that there was something before that, but of course we are not given detail what was that something. It only says that it replaced an existing structure on the site. Now, looking at the actual fort, many questions arise. Now, we are told that this was built by the military in a hurry under the pressure of riots around you, but you are not looking at the rioting peasants around, but instead you find that this is the right time to become art maniac and build your fort with very complex Romaic arches that have complex curving planes in few dimensions. This requires enormous extra expenditure in terms of time and money to hire such skilled masons that would measure each and every particular stone on the spot so that it fits the complex curves in few planes. Each individual stone should perfectly fill the curve of the ceiling and then the curve of the arc on the side. Have you ever even tried to cut two wooden pieces so that they form a beautiful angle when put together afterwards? Even one such simple junction will require some extra attention and craftsmanship. Then based on that, just try to imagine how much time needs to be invested in each of these stones, because each of them is unique and has to be on the spot adjusted to perfectly match the surrounding stones. This is unimaginably complex work, especially if they were using the techniques that we know of, that we imagine the stonemasons used 130 years ago. So while the locals are rioting and shooting at your doorstep, apparently the Austro-Hungarian military were into fine arts, and if you do something, let's do it well. They were not satisfied with ordinary building. Look at this ceiling height. This is 5-6 meters. Each and every stone, polygonal masonry, each and every stone has to be carved, worked on by its own. They are not standard stones. Were they parking their tanks there? That's one luxurious tank parking. And by the way, there could be no tanks there because the full building, the full fort, at least 3 stories high, is below ground level. It is situated in a large pit, a large hole in the ground that has been dug, by the way, into the solid bedrock. It's not just soil there. There is no road, no tanks could go inside. So the question arises, what kind of technology, for what did they need these high ceilings, large halls? And then this what looks like windows are very strange. At first glance they look like loopholes or arrow slits. I'm not sure even how is it called in English, but they're not. These are just holes. There is no actual opening to make it a window. And that's how it looks on the inside. Large hole, something unexplainable inside. Again, what kind of technology were they using? Who were they? As you can see on the inside, there are no windows or loopholes or anything like that. But to be fair, there are few real loopholes in the building, like these ones, but most of them had to be readjusted. Look at this. Obviously, the top stone was additionally broken to accommodate their weapons. Well, apparently the Austro-Hungarian military was so much into fine art and curved arches that they forgot to take into account what kind of weapons would they be using so that they can make the proper loopholes for them. And when the rioting peasants reached the building, oh, they figured out our weapons don't fit here, let's make bigger holes so that we can shoot. And then we go on the top of the building. Over there we see two large domes. One of them has a very Austro-Hungarian looking inscription on it. And the other one, yes, that looks like some sort of device that could be used for shooting from it safely without being hit. I mean, shooting through these cemented holes. And then we get the feeling, oh yes, this could have been designed as a military fort after all, we just don't understand their logic. But this feeling starts evaporating when you go below this dome. Surprisingly enough, there is no way to access it from below. This is what we see, a corridor that ends with a narrow dead end. And it really seems that this was the original design because this fort has not been redone. It is currently absolutely abandoned. It hasn't been used for any other than military purposes, so that a dead-end corridor could not be a later on addition. And again, we come back to the original question, what is this all about? On the top floor, where you would expect indeed to have some loopholes, because from there you have a chance to shoot to the rioters that are supposedly coming to you. Over there you get large windows as if it is a hotel or a resort of some sort. And then look at the quality of the stonework on the upper left hand side wall. Obviously this is a completely different story. It cannot compare with the building quality of the original building. Maybe this was what was actually added in year 1885, and the actual fort was the remains from the structure before. The window also shows some evidence that the initial stonemasons were much more advanced than the reusers of the structure later on. Again, striking contrast in the building quality. This is another shot showing the obvious differences between the two generations of stonemasons that worked here. So was this fort really built in 1886, or was the earlier structure given a new frisure at that time? That we cannot answer at the moment, but in any case this is not an ancient structure because we see practically no erosion on it. It looks pretty newish. And this does look like a genuine Austro-Hungarian inscription of this period, but that is not extremely helpful because the domes are on the top. Obviously they have been added later on because they were cemented. They do not belong to the original structure, so they can't help us date the original one. And then instead of using some sort of easy and faster methods to make the ceilings, they decided to go the hardest way possible, at least for our understanding, and make it out of relatively small stones. Their size would be some approximately 30 centimeters. On one side, this shows how little do we know of the building techniques that were used, let's say, 130 years ago, or even somewhat earlier than that. Still, it doesn't change the situation, and on the other hand, proves a distant connection, for example, with the technique used in Baalbek. Over there in the tunnels, we see the absolutely same thing. It makes no sense, but they have used small stones for the ceiling. If one goes there nowadays, the two stories are more or less accessible, but there are doors leading to even lower levels, and God knows what's there. It's quite dangerous due to animals and darkness and cobwebs and I don't know what else. But it's quite amazing how much of work has been done and how much of this solid bedrock has been removed. A very deep shaft, again maybe carved into the solid bedrock. Water is seen on the distant bottom, if there is any bottom. Strange, such shafts seem to be found beneath many other ancient structures that use polygonal stonework. Although this fort poses more questions rather than answering anything, still I would like to suggest a few conclusions. First of all, just see the quality of stonework few hundred years ago. And then compare it with the ugly cement and brick addition on the top, which dates to a later stage. That's how it looks on the inside. It's got even a date. A helpful time stamp, a milestone in the progressive degradation of our building capabilities. And then the crown jewel of all beauty in the vicinity is this modern bridge. This is lovely, just look at its aesthetics. I think we are quite near to our final destinations, becoming full-fledged monkeys. I really do understand that some of us can have difficulties with the fact that we are turning into monkeys very soon. And I have a solution, don't you worry. It will all happen without you feeling anything at all. Something like an aesthetic. Since most of us spend their lives in a digital trance, you will not notice the reality around. Thousands of people hypnotized even by small hypnosis devices like cell phones. They walk into traffic, they fall off cliffs by thousands because they become completely disconnected with the reality around, and they stop making difference between their own thoughts and those given by the hypnotic device. So if a small cell phone can give such outstanding results, then just imagine the magnitude of the hypnosis caused by your hypnotic box at home, the TV set, your domestic hypnoset. But don't you worry, you won't even feel or understand the transition to a complete monkey circus society. Moreover, this is a well-tested and proven working method. Mass media has already managed to erase people's memory even in terms of how their forefathers were building such amazing structures only 100 or 200 years ago. Our building techniques have managed to degrade so fast to such an extent, see the proof with your own eyes, so I really don't see any problem for the rest of program for monketeering the full human society very soon, happening on a schedule. And actually this fort in Montenegro, Crna is one out of the many. For example, in previous videos we saw aqueducts in France that were exhibiting full-fledged polygonal and megalithic masonry. And probably the best example of all remains the full old city of St. Petersburg. Polygonal stonework all over, huge megaliths, palaces that we nowadays will have extreme difficulty replicating, but all of that is in the episode called Monkeys Build Megaliths.
When you let go of fear, the truth will appear, so simple and clear. When you let go of fear, the truth will appear, so simple and clear. There's a feeling inside, so deep and so wide, so open and free. When love is revealed, all beings are healed, so natural.